We're going to leave the agenda for a little bit, and as everyone knows, we've got some serious issues going on with our budget that we needed to begin discussion. So I'm going to turn it over to the mayor. One thing that I want everybody to be fully aware of is that I want you to feel confident in expressing your opinions here. Sitting back and feeling that you have something to offer and don't do it doesn't help us. So don't be afraid. If you've got ideas, you got things that you want to see discussed, let's get them on the table and discuss them. Does everybody understand?
Yep.
Okay. Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. President. Trying to get the email brought up here with the different pieces of information. I know council and the department heads has been apprised. We are here at the administration updating city council and our department heads daily on where we stand financially right now with the city. And trying to get the information called up here quick, but essentially so that the public is also aware, we've of course taken a significant hit to our revenues that we have at the city due to a lot of folks being out of work and either furloughed or on unemployment, and a lot of our businesses closed here in the Tiffin community. This is not a problem for just Tiffin, Ohio. Mayors across the state of Ohio and really this country are dealing with severe budget ramifications because of the lack of income coming into cities. So we reported previously that in April of 2019, the city took in approximately $1.2 million in income tax money. In April of 2020, so this year, we only took in $844,000. That was a decrease of 29.7% of revenue in just a 1 month period. Unfortunately, the numbers are much worse as we hit the halfway point through May. On May 15th of 2019, the city brought in a total of $625,123. That's $625,123. As of May 15th, 2020, we have only collected $303,618. $303,618. That is a decrease of 51.4% of revenue. Overall, the difference from just April 1st through May 15th, from 2019 numbers to 2020, we have brought in $677,505 less revenue than we did 1 year ago on just that 45-day period. We're trying to get a handle on what exactly this means. Obviously, it's significant decreases in revenue. Something that is also really kind of goofing with our ability to calculate a lot of these matters is the fact that the state of Ohio and the federal government delayed tax day until July the 15th. So we know there is some additional revenue that we will receive between now and July 15th. So these numbers are, of course, worst case. The problem is we're not going to see $700,000 of revenue come back. In fact, if you extrapolate these numbers out, we're likely to be well over $1 million in the hole by that period of time. So we at the administration have already begun making significant cuts to our budget here in the city. Let me call up the email just so I can reference it. I know you all already have it, but I'd prefer to have it in front of me so I can look over and reference that at the same time. We've done a lot of things here at the city to start making cuts already, because every dollar we can save now is really $2 saved in the future, because making cuts this early in the year, we're able to quickly get ahead of things. Whereas if we wait until third quarter, fourth quarter, we have to make even more significant cuts to make up for the losses that we've received on the year. So we've gotten as creative as possible here at the city with trying to come up with anything and everything that we can to save revenue. And I'm trying to talk at the same time I find this email. It's not working well. But some of the items that you had seen are the fact that we've made offers to employees for voluntary furloughs. With that, we're not forcing it upon any employee. However, we are allowing anyone who wishes to take a furlough to do so. The reason it's attractive to many employees, there's several reasons. One of which they still receive unemployment, so that's half of their salary. They still receive their medical insurance benefit coverage. And they also are eligible for the additional $600 per month from the federal program. So for many of our employees, they're actually able to receive their same income level, in some cases higher. In some cases, it's even a little lower, but not much. But they're able to take time off while the good months are coming up, whether it be May, June, July. The problem is that $600 runs out at the end of July. And once that money runs out, we can't imagine many folks are going to jump at the opportunity for the voluntary furlough program. However, we've been able to identify somewhere in the neighborhood of $60,000 in savings with that. Other items that we have done, we're not hiring any of the summer help at the Parks Department. That was able to come up with a savings of approximately $43,000. And one thing I want to be clear of with the parks, I know earlier in the year we made the decision to go ahead and axe all of the day camps and summer public park programs. To be clear, and we have Bryce here also, we in no way, that has nothing to do with any of the summer ball leagues. Council may or may not know that a couple of years ago, all of the ball leagues went to a private organization that run baseball, soccer, football. We don't have city-run sports leagues. They're all run by private organizations. So those organizations have to make their own decisions on if they're going to have seasons this year or not. We're not making that decision for them. It's up to each individual organization. Of course, if they're going to continue with their summer leagues, they need to follow the guidelines as put out by the governor and the Ohio Department of Health. But as long as they're following the regulations and guidelines that are in place by the state, we are not going to tell them, yes, you have to have a season, or no, you cannot. We're letting that up to each individual league. So what we canceled were things like the summer concert series at Hedges Boyer Park, our day camps that are run by park staff. Those were the things that were eliminated. Ball leagues were not affected by the decisions that the city made. As of now, the governor has allowed baseball to come back. However, contact sports are not permitted, like soccer and basketball. That's why the basketball nets are still down, or basketball hoops are still down, and will be down until the state of Ohio lifts that order. Once it's lifted, we will replace the basketball hoops at the park. So those were some changes that were made to the Parks Department. We have not made any decision around 4th of July fireworks. Fireworks cost us between $20,000 and $22,000 per year between the fireworks display and the overtime that goes along with it. We have also not made any decision formally about the City of Tiffin swimming pool. We look to all of you for some direction. Bryce has a report this evening that I'll let him give in a few moments, talking about the pool, because we need feedback from you all at council. We're not here asking for feedback from council on whether you think the pool is safe to open or not, because guidelines have been put out, guidelines and regulations that we can follow if necessary. What we're looking for city council for some direction on is because of the cost, and knowing that we're facing a budget crisis. That is what the decision needs to center around when it comes to the municipal pool. It's a cost decision. It's not safety at this point. The guidelines that have been put out by the experts at the Ohio Department of Health and additional guidelines from the CDC mean that we can open the pool safely, because if we open it, of course, we're going to follow those guidelines and regulations. So it can be open safely. The question we have for council is, can we afford it? Other items that I want to cover so that the public's aware of what has been done. We've already talked about the furloughs. That we've identified over $60,000 of savings. Police and fire have both reduced their minimum staffing that must be on a shift. In doing so, that saves on overtime costs. We believe we've saved somewhere, we may be able to approach $150,000 in overtime savings, but that is no guarantee. We never know what every year will bring. We're always one or two large incidents, whether it's the SWAT team with the police department, whether it's a large fire from blowing through that budget. So I don't want us to look and say, well, we think we've identified $150,000 in savings and just take that to the bank as being true money that is actually going to come back to our pocket. We may save more than that if we have a down year. We may save a lot less than that if we have a bad year with a lot of calls. We have no idea what 2020 is going to bring. So kudos to the chiefs and for the departments for making those changes. We have also instituted a hiring freeze on all departments within the city. We are not looking to hire anyone additional for any position for the foreseeable future here at the city. We've had several employees leave in various departments this year. We have no plans to replace any of them as of now because why replace positions only to potentially have to lay them off in a few months? So that will save additional money. So there's a lot of things that we need to do. We've eliminated any kind of travel. We're not paying any kind of travel reimbursement, meal reimbursement, et cetera, for any employees. We've already said I've got several out-of-town meetings that I don't know if they will still happen, but I'm leading by example. If there is a meeting in Columbus or somewhere else that I'm attending on behalf of the city, I am covering my own mileage, paying my own meal. Whereas in the past, we would have turned in mileage reimbursement. We've told all employees, unless it's something essential, either don't go to it or expect to pay for that mileage, meal, et cetera, out of your own pocket, because we have got to get down to basically a bare bones budget for the foreseeable future here. Same with office supplies, any kind of, if you need new computer equipment, et cetera, if the computer works, if that piece of equipment works, whatever it may be, don't replace it unless it gets to the point that it's dead, because we cannot afford right now to go out and just start blowing money on things. I know a lot of times with our departments, we try to cycle through and update computers on a schedule. Once they reach their useful life, we've got to extend that useful life out for a lot of our technology and not be replacing those kind of items until we have a better handle on where we are at financially at the city. But any and all non-essential spending has been axed for the rest of the year. You already know the facade enhancement program was ended. That returned over $30,000 to the budget once we pass an ordinance. And we talked this morning at the department head meeting that we will get legislation together and present it to council eventually to reduce some of these expenditures in the budget so you can have a better figure on it. But we all know that at the end of this year, we had only projected a carryover in the neighborhood of $1 million. And we're projected already just this month and a half, we're down almost $700,000 in revenue. So, you know, we're not trying to scare anyone, but we are staring down the barrel of a potential financial crisis with the city right now. That's why we are getting drastic with any kind of cuts that we're making. So we're here in front of City Council tonight, essentially asking all of you for any ideas that you have to reduce expenditures, to create additional revenue, and what sort of items does council feel can be cut for this year in order to make ends meet? Because at the end of the day, we have to have our safety service forces responding to the needs of the residents here in the community. And the fact that we're down almost $700,000 in revenue with no pickup to the economy anticipated in the short term, we have to plug as many of these leaking holes as we can in order to ensure that we are able to provide our residents with the best service possible. So I know that was a lot. I'm going to, if you don't mind, Mr. President, let Parks and Rec Director Bryce Kuhn talk a little bit about the swimming pool and about our park programs, because that's one decision that we're asking City Council to please weigh in on this evening, our parks activities.
Sounds good, Bryce.
All right. Thank you. Good evening, y'all. Y'all, that's cool. So I had put a PowerPoint together, kind of forecasting what our expenses and revenues were last year, and kind of maybe a little foreshadow to see where we would be in 2020 with the regular season, but also a kind of a slashed in half season. So if I can figure out how to share the PowerPoint, I will be happy to do it rather than just talking. Let's see if I can figure this out.
Yeah, Bryce, if you bring it up on your screen and then go to share screen, it should work.
Okay.
So you bring it up on your computer screen and then there's a share screen button.
Share. All right.
And that should bring it up for all of us.
All right, let's try this again.
Are you on your phone or are you on your laptop?
Laptop here.
Yeah, there should be a green button that says share screen.
All right, well, I see that, yeah, gosh.
Well, if you can't get it to work, I can bring it up on mine and share mine, so.
Okay, yeah, that would be perfect.
Okay, well, I'll get into it. Give me a second. So if you want to start talking while I hunt down where your email is.
Okay.
And you'll just have to tell me once I get it up when to click next or in.
Click next, okay.
Yeah.
So from 2019, we were open for 91 days. We had an expense of $58,480.03. Our revenues were $36,655.06 for a loss of $21,655.97 for the 2019 season. If we would take our expenses, which was at $58,480, and divide that by the 91 days of our operation, we need to, it's $642.64 per day expense. We have 5 staff on duty. It's 4 guards to 1 supervisor, and it would fluctuate basically looking at the forecast weather-wise. We would kind of have an on-call staff if need to be. And again, that is kind of with our ratio, guarding ratio, 1 guard to the 25 swimmers, which is put out to us by the health department. Perfect. Thank you.
Is that working?
That's perfect.
Okay, can you all see it?
Yes.
Okay, just let me know. Oops, is that good, Bryce? Is that the right
Yes,
slide? Okay.
there you go. So that's what I just had read there. So what I had done, our normal operation hours are 1 p.m. till 7 p.m. So kind of I built in a 9-hour day because we would have to come in an hour earlier now to do cleaning, sanitizing, and an hour afterwards to clean and sanitize as well. Based off the 4 guards and the 1 supervisor, it's an average per hour per person of $9.40. Next, Mayor. So here's kind of 2 calculations I've figured out. If we would open up for 63 days, which would be June 15th through the 17th of August, or 49 days of operation starting July 1st to the 19th of August. So you'll see the 642.64. Again, that was that per day expense. And we're going to multiply that by the 63 days, and that's going to get us a loss of $40,486.32. If we would be open for 7 weeks, we would have a loss of $31,489.37. So again, that was based off of the expenses from last year. I did go back all the way back to 2017, 18, and 19. I averaged the expense out, and the average expense for those 3 years was $58,717.16. Mayor, if you could go back 1 page.
Did I go the wrong way?
Yeah, sorry. There we go. So you'll see the expense for 2019 was $58,480, and our average was $58,717. So pretty close as far as those items would be kind of calculated. On top of that, next slide, Mayor. Thank you. At the bottom, you'll see some other items added for increase in expenses, such as more cleaning supplies, PPE equipment, the face shields, the gloves, and guideline safety items such as the plastic barriers that would have to be installed in the office area, on top of training the staff now as to the proper ways to sanitize and disinfect properly. And we have to be open for at least 10 days before we can let anybody in the facility, as far as the members or day admission would go, based off the guidelines that are given. Next slide. So with the guidelines that were put out last, I think it was Saturday, by the governor's office, there is some that's recommendations, but also some that are required. So the recommendation for our deck area, with having the 6x6 space, social distancing space, excuse me, you take your surface area, which is at 6,000, you're dividing that by a 6x6 by 3.14. So for just our deck, the concrete area, the grass area, we're only allowed to have 53 people. That's not including the swimming area, the actual pool itself. There's no calculation formula for that at this given time. Along with that, we would have to install hand sanitizing stations, enforce the social distancing piece in the water, and potentially closure of the slide, and absolutely no rentals for that. The one thing I do want to speak with the social distancing in the water, it's required that your guards only guard and not be the social distancing police, if you will. So, having additional staff to patrol that throughout the grounds and making sure that the social distancing is actually being enforced is very crucial with this. Next slide, Mayor. Along with that, screening all patrons before entry. I asked the basic questions if they've been around anybody with COVID. Temperature checks are kind of being questioned as well to make sure. Closing off non-essential areas really doesn't apply to us because we don't have any other areas that they need to be going into. Our concession stand is closed. We have vending machines, so we don't have to worry about the contact piece there. Wearing face mask, again, just like you would anywhere else, any other stores. Install the physical barriers, again, those plastic shields, kind of creating the in entrance and the out exit. We're limited to the one door coming in and going out. So we need to get pretty creative as to how we can make sure it's kind of tight corners there. So we got to get smart to install that. Cleaning and disinfecting every 2 hours. And then the facial recovering. So the lifeguards would potentially have to wear face masks. And a lot of you guys have been out to the pool before, so you understand like our office area. So I would be enforcing, not really taking the mandatory breaks that we do every 50 minutes now, just to eliminate the craziness and that pandemonium of 10 minutes where everybody runs to the concession stand area, or go back and hang out in the grass area for 10 minutes while the staff takes a 10-minute break. So we would do some kind of different rotation with the staff to make sure that everybody stays in the pool and there's no congregating, to eliminate that extra social distancing piece. And then there's about 5 other slides that goes through to with baseball requirements and regulations, guidelines, and softball. And then to finish it up, there's day camp guidelines. So as the mayor kind of spoke on before, we do not run our baseball or softball leagues. It's a separate 501c3. And every year they sign a contract. You know, they have the insurance. They understand the maintenance of the fields. And as about a month ago, when the nonprofit came out and stated that they were not going to be doing the baseball season this year because of COVID and also the financial piece as well, I don't see them having any interest in maybe even doing a later season or a postponed season for that. Now, however, we have been contacted with some travel leagues that are wanting and potentially wanting to use the fields. We do have the contract piece still involved, and they're going to be required to get the actual handout from the governor's office that will indicate the guidelines that they need to comply with. And if they would not comply with some of the guidelines-based stuff, you know, one of our staff seen or it's been reported to us, they would be eliminated and not being able to use the fields for that. So we need to take it pretty seriously. And since they're using our fields and, you know, our property, we got to make sure we're enforcing everything we can. So that stuff's kind of straightforward, not really dealing with budgeting aspect, but I wanted you guys to see that as well. And there are the links on the very last slide that can be passed out to you via email if you would like those.
Yeah, if you could send those out, Bryce, to all the council members, I think that would be helpful.
Perfect.
If I have a question for you.
Yes.
If did I understand correctly that the maximum number of people that could be in the pool at one time would be 53?
That would be the actual hard surface, so the concrete and the grass area, not the physical pool.
All right. Do we have a number on how many people could use the pool at any one time?
So there's not really a calculation out yet. Now the hard piece that I was talking to with department heads this morning is, so we were only potentially allowed to have 53 people on deck, if you will. That includes my staff. So if a kid would go off the diving board, well, they have to use the ladder to get out. So now we got to make sure that there's someone going into the pool while another kid can get out. So that's going to get kind of very challenging for the staff to kind of oversee and kind of be on the numbers.
Okay. I'm sorry, I don't mean to laugh. I'm just, it's like, who are those cops that,
Well, the problem is, Rich, you've got most of the people that are going to have to act as the pool cops are actually 15, 16, 17-year-old lifeguards as well. That's something to keep in mind.
yeah.
Yeah, and on top of that too, kind of go back to Mayor's email that he had sent out a couple weeks ago. With our cuts that we have had with all of our seasonals, it's just going to be very challenging too. To myself and Mason and Todd are the three that are mowing our 17 parks. So our staff is very limited, and we're doing what we can.
I have are we allowed to use volunteers to mow?
No, I don't believe so.
No.
Unfortunately, yeah, the union would not be happy with that.
Bryce, I think you also mentioned because of the locker rooms having to be sanitized frequently, you'd have to have an attendant in each of the locker rooms almost constantly so that they can clean after every person. Is that right?
That's correct. Yeah. So one person in, attendant would go in, sanitize the entire locker room, and let them back in. And that's why I think having the no rest breaks would be kind of pretty crucial too, because we all know as soon as the whistle blows, everybody runs into the pool to use the hot water and it runs back out. So yeah, so you'd have 2 attendants plus you would have 2 or 3 social distancing police on deck on top of the lifeguards.
Is it, Councilwoman Yantuno?
Is it okay for us to start conversation?
Please.
Sure.
Okay. Well, first of all, years ago, when I finally started taking my kids, letting them have pool passes. And one year, I think the pool had some issues and they closed it down. And instead, my kids did pool passes at the Y, which in some ways is kind of good because you're not getting the sun and all those harmful things going on. So I'm almost wondering if the Y would be interested in helping out this year. But as I'm listening to Bryce's report, I would think the cleaning supplies and all this hassle with cleaning alone is going to be astronomical in cost just to keep up with that. What if attendance is down? We're going to lose even more money if parents aren't comfortable sending their kids there. I'm not sure that it's worth the short season. And it mentions they have to have masks on. How are they going to keep masks on and keep them dry? I mean, that almost seems silly. From what you're telling us, I would start the conversation that maybe we need to leave the pool closed this year, unfortunately. But I think it's getting started late anyhow. I just don't see where it's worth the cost.
Councilman Leopard?
Thank you, Mr. President. I agree as well. It's logistically with personnel, it's just not going to work. I hate to say it, but I think it needs to remain closed. Where else are we going to find $43,000 if we end up opening the pool? Plus, then you have to hire lifeguards. Don't know what the situation will be there. You know, if they're with employment. I also had a note too about swimming pool YMCA, if they had any interest in working with the city and picking up the slack. Financially, I don't see how we can do it. And just to be clear, Bryce, the ball teams, the baseball teams, softball teams would prep their own fields with their own equipment.
That is correct. Yeah, we would, years past, we would do one or two hard drags with our actual heavy duty tractor a week based on weather conditions. But that's going to be noted to them as well, that maintenance, we won't be able to, unfortunately, help with that unless there is a true pothole or a washout that, a little bit more elbow grease would need to be given with our expertise.
Thank you.
Yes.
Anyone else? Councilman Jones?
There, I got it. Thank you. I concur with the other two council people. If last year we lost $22,000 roughly, and with the extra cleaning supply, extra personnel to do the extra cleaning, lifeguards wearing masks for 8 hours, trying to police the area, and I keep thinking about working on a balanced budget, and if we don't have 22,000 plus extra, I say leave the pool closed.
Anyone else? Councilman Schuff?
I'm in agreement as well. Unfortunately, it's always one of those things that's kind of first up on the chopping block. I mean, the pool's never made us money in any years I can remember since I've been on council. Hate to close it, but I agree with my fellow council members.
Very good. Anyone else? Is there agreement, consensus on this, that we should at this point keep the pool closed?
Yes.
I see a lot of heads nodding. Is there anyone who doesn't think we should? Speak up now. All right. I know it's tough, but we got to do what we got to do. Anything else, Bryce?
It's kind of some good news. We had some day camp counselors from the years past and last year that, they understand the hard times we're having and they're stepping up and volunteering. They're putting together some educational videos along with some different activity videos that we'll be able to use and pump out throughout the summer to hopefully keep some of the day camp activities and items and fun throughout the parks going on, since there really is none of that happening this year. So hopefully that will boost some of our, our reoccurring families this summer.
Good.
With that, Mr. President, we also have to keep in mind, we have not made a decision on fireworks yet. But we're running really short on time because Bryce has to have that contract signed. If we want them for the 4th, by what date is it, Bryce?
It's this Friday.
That's right. What kind of issues do we have if we have fireworks and all this social distancing, and is it even going to be feasible?
Well, that's the problem. Until the governor comes up, or ODH, whomever, comes up with a ratcheting down of the social distancing requirements, I guess our options would be, I don't know, I guess you start thinking about different options. Do you do it from your vehicle? You have to remain in your vehicle, because that's one option you could do. But then there's a lot of, you can't fit every car in there. You figure out how many people walk to the park and the logistical nightmares of getting out of that. I don't know. I really don't think there's any good answer, because we have to have so much lead time to sign this contract in order to have the fireworks by the 4th, that it almost seems, unless he announces something this week before Friday, that it's hard for us to sign that contract, because then we're out all that money. But then, of course, if he 2 weeks, 3 weeks from now says that it's okay for larger crowds, then we look like fools for canceling it. So it's we're in a very tough spot right now, not knowing when the orders of no gatherings of 10 or more people will be discontinued. But what we do know is right now, based off of the governor and ODH orders, are that we cannot host a gathering of 10 or more people, which of course the fireworks would without a doubt be above that. But that's what is terrible about canceling all these things, is we want to give people hope and something to look forward to. And that's why my suggestion was, if we can't have the fireworks on the 4th, why don't we look at pushing them off, and maybe we say, okay, we can't have them on the 4th. Our next goal is to do them Labor Day weekend. And if it looks like Labor Day is going to not work, can we put them off and do it sometime in October? Or if we really have to, can we even look at doing them at Christmas time, and at least there's not leaves on the trees, and you should be able to see the fireworks from a lot further away from your own vehicle. So I don't know, Rich, if we had a great solid answer to this, we would have already decided it. But I just don't want to also sign the contract for fireworks and throw how many $1,000s out the window and find out we have to cancel them, because if we don't, we're going to get the state officials down here arresting myself and Bryce because we've had fireworks and put 10,000 people in the park. So I don't know. That's what the frustration is right now, is it's tough to make these decisions on events a few months out that we have to sign contracts for.
Councilman Leffert, do you have your hand up?
Yes, I do. Thank you, Mr. President. I remember, those aren't my dogs.
Sorry.
I remember Council President Paul Elkert always saying that the 4th of July picnic in the park is vacation for a lot of our residents, and how important it was. I agree with that, but I also think that it would be a waste of our money signing a contract this coming Friday for the 4th of July, not knowing what's going to happen. Maybe we could save that $20,000 for now and postpone it till Heritage Festival, if it works out right with the governor's orders, or save it for January 1st. But at this time, I don't think that I don't think the 4th of July is going to be a possibility.
Yeah. Councilwoman Boyle?
Yeah, to Steve's point, with so many families using that as a nice vacation, so to speak, I I don't know that they would enjoy themselves as much either. And so, I just really think that if we postponed it to a later time, that it would be best for everyone. We would have more assurance with everything. And I think that people would enjoy themselves more. So that's just my opinion.
Councilwoman Yanatuno?
I agree with that also. I was thinking the same thing when you were talking about dates further out. I was thinking Heritage Festival also, unless that ends up getting canceled. But with all these restrictions, it just doesn't seem worth it. And we would be taking a heck of a chance to try to do that. So I would say postpone it and make a decision later on to do it later in the year.
Councilman Perry?
I would just have a question. Would people still be able to go to the park if there are groups of 10 and they're 6 feet away from another group?
Yes.
Mayor?
Yes. So the rules are it's groups of 10 or more are not allowed. So if you and 9 people, well, it's 10 or more, so you and 8 others are, let's say standing near the sand volleyball courts, according to the state orders, that's okay if there's another group of 8 or 9 people standing 6 to 10 or whatever feet away from you. So I think our concern from our side is how do we possibly enforce social distancing if we just say it's a free for all at Hedges, please keep 6 feet or more away. What are we going to do? Do like that restaurant that I saw on the news tonight that's providing all of their patrons with a 6 foot wide inner tube they have to wear around themselves, and you're basically playing bumper bars at the bars or restaurants. So that's the concern is, and then if we have the fireworks or whatever that big gathering is, and then there is some kind of an outbreak, who's at fault for that? Where does the blame lie? The state of Ohio and whoever coming down on us saying, well, we told you no gatherings of 10 or more. You didn't police and break up any of the large groups of people at the park for your fireworks. There were pictures everywhere of people, right on top of one another. I don't know if you listened to the governor's news conference today, but he was pretty darn stern with his words for bars and restaurants, talking about revoking liquor permits and their food license. And I don't know about any of you, but that language was pretty harsh today. And we're trying to be as good as we can. That, to this date, the police department has not handed out a single citation for this. I commend Fred Stevens and his staff for being very proactive at working with people, explaining the situation, and not just getting citation happy. And really using common sense, because that's, I think, what a lot of this comes down to is we all just need to use a lot of common sense with what we're doing and our actions that we're taking for the next several months.
Yeah. I really wish there was something we could do 4th of July. I just think it'd be awesome to, have some kind of hope that day, that we're coming out of this and stuff. I get that it might make more sense to postpone it. I didn't know if it'd be possible, and I'm just obviously throwing out an idea, to maybe like mark spots off and people could rent a spot for $20 for the day or something like that. And, make them maybe 50 feet by 50 feet, and they can only have 10 people within that box or something like that. And you have to stay within that area. I don't know. I'm just trying to think of an idea. I would love to keep it on the 4th of July personally. I get that it might make more sense to postpone it though, but just an idea.
Councilman Gillig?
Thank you, Mr. President. I sort of feel like the Grinch that stole Christmas, just taking things away and taking things away. But this may just be the year we all look back on, and the year without so many things. Logistically, I just feel it could be an absolute nightmare where we'd already be looking at substantial overtime cost for our police, and then what are we going to do? Because if you've seen people out in public, a lot of folks have had about enough of social distancing, and we're trying to have a community gathering, and I just feel like there'd be a lot of bad feelings just because there'd be lots of restrictions and logistics. And, to say nothing of the cost, I just feel like this year postponing is going to at least be our best option for now.
Yeah. Councilman Jones.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. When the mayor, someone was talking about asking people to stay in their cars, keeping their lawn chairs separated, not be in groups, et cetera, et cetera. It just takes a handful of groups or handful of people to spoil it for everyone. So I don't know how we could control social distancing in a big park like Hedges. So I would suggest postponing it also.
Okay. Bryce, you had your hand up?
Yeah, speaking with the fireworks contractors or the company, we've been dealing with them for this company for about 15 years. The flexibility, they obviously they're not going to hurt us or sabotage us at all. They want to work with us, and a lot of them have said a lot of the districts have actually just pushed it to Labor Day already as kind of a hot new date, just because it is down the road yet to come. But they will be willing and able to work with us if we do cancel or postpone. And the nice thing is we only are required to pay 50% of the bill up front, and then 50% the day of the event. So we could be out, $7,500 versus the full $15,000.
Okay.
I guess another question, if we think there's a consensus to delay, and I'm not trying to put words in council's mouth, but if that's the consensus is to delay it, what date does council prefer? Do they prefer Labor Day weekend or do they prefer Heritage Festival weekend? I mean, they're only within a couple of weekends of one another, but which one of those two would you prefer? Because obviously we would want to get messaging out that this is the new goal. Is we don't want to say one or the other because there's a lot of families that are going to make their plans based off of fireworks at the park. And if council is saying that we think we should delay it, we need to know, do we want it Labor Day weekend or do we want it Heritage Festival weekend? So that's what I would throw back to all of you.
Councilwoman Yantuno?
I would say the Heritage Festival to help generate more activity there and more attendance, that would actually help that out and give that a new thing for a change. And plus it gives us a few more weeks. And so I would say Heritage Festival. Are we having the Heritage Festival?
No decision's been made yet, Councilwoman. Dale gave us an update this morning at our department head meeting, and as of Dale's last conversation with them, they're grappling with the same things that we are right now because, as you know, the Heritage Festival is a large event. They've got a lot of contracts that they have to sign with their vendors, from anything from ride operators to food sales and other items. So they're going through the same concerns right now, not knowing, trying to predict the future, because they have deadlines that they have to meet as well.
Councilman Leopard?
I would prefer Labor Day.
Okay. Councilman Perry?
I guess I would just have a question. I feel like July 4th is still a month and a half away. We know we're going to do the fireworks at some point. I guess what is the harm in can you not order the fireworks for July 4th and then not use them July 4th? Do they have to be set off July 4th? Bryce?
That is, am I on? Yeah, I'm on. That is correct. Yeah. So once the initial $7,500 is contract is signed for that date, they purchase the fireworks and they do have a shelf life, if you will.
Oh, okay. All right. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
All right.
Councilman Jones?
I would suggest Heritage Festival weekend also. It's my understanding that Heritage Festival is one of the biggest ones in Ohio. We're attracting people from outside the community to come in and enjoy Seneca County and Tiffin. I think it'd be a bigger crowd at Heritage Day Festival than Labor Day weekend. So Heritage Festival weekend would be my input.
Okay. A question, Mayor Bryce, we don't have to decide tonight when we're going to have them, do we? Just that we're not going to do them on the 4th of July?
Yeah, that would be correct, Mr. President. It's just, it would be nice to give people hope if we're making a press release going out saying that we are postponing them from the 4th, that this is the new date. I think it at least gives people something to look forward to and some new hope, whereas if we just cancel them, people may take that they're just canceled for the year or something. So we're hoping, I mean, if council has enough faith in us, they can just let us pick. And since there seems to be people saying Labor Day weekend and Heritage Festival time, maybe we literally, pull it out of a hat, whichever one it is, because I think they both have a lot of merits. There's a lot of people that get an extended weekend for Labor Day weekend. But there's also a lot of people that come to Tiffin, and maybe it helps draw the crowd in for the Heritage Festival to be the only community doing a big fireworks display that weekend. So it's up to council, but I myself, if we're going to put out that we're postponing them for the 4th, I would like to at least give people the new tentative date, so there's at least something to look forward to for folks. I think we need to try to get as much positivity out there as we can.
Okay. City Administrator Thornton.
The only thing with the Heritage Festival, if we were to commit to that, is they may not be able to have it based on their own financial situation if they feel that they'd have to sign contracts and are too unsure about the festival to do that. So we need a fallback. If we could say sometime in September, either Labor Day or Heritage Festival, depending on how things play out, it gives us a little more flexibility.
Councilwoman Iannatuno.
I have no problem with the mayor and city administrator picking that date. That it's just not a problem for me either way. I just thought it would boost attendance at the Heritage Festival. So, it's fine either way. So I don't have any problem with that.
Okay. Councilman Leopard.
More parking spaces available if you do it on Labor Day instead of Heritage Festival.
Yeah, that is something, Steve, that I didn't think of, but you're exactly right, because of part of the lower park already being shut down for the village. That is something to take into consideration that I didn't think of. Dale may have already thought of it, but I actually didn't think about that. So good call out on that. I would love to see us one year return fireworks to the downtown. I know it wouldn't be easy, and there'd be a lot of other logistics into it. This year's probably not the right year, but I think it'd be really neat to bring fireworks down here sometime.
Councilman Jones.
Another option that y'all sound like Bryce. You may not like is, what if we put the press release out and say we're not going to have fireworks in 2020? If we're down $700,000 and we don't have an extra $15,000, $20,000 to blow up in fireworks, maybe we ought to just take the tough stand and say we're not going to do it in 2020, and throw that out there for you to discuss.
What's the feeling on that? Just not doing them at all. Any comment? Councilman Perry.
Yeah, I'd really like to do the fireworks this year. Obviously my preference would be July 4th, but understand we can't. Like was already mentioned before, actually talked about it with a few customers today, talking about possibility of the pool closing and fireworks and which they'd prefer over the other. And both guys said, by far the pool to be closed rather than the fireworks be shut down. Said that's like their family vacation, like was already mentioned before. But so I would say we find a way somehow to make the fireworks work whatever day we decide. So
Councilwoman Iannatuno, did you have your hand up?
Yes, I know in the past when it's come to financial things, people get a little upset about not having the fireworks, and then they start raising money for it. So I'm afraid if we say there's not going to be any blah, 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 then all of a sudden you're going to have all these people trying to fundraise, which is fine, but then we're back in, do we have to pick a date again? So I hate to start that kind of conversation at this point. I don't want to cancel them. We need to do something to celebrate at some point this year. And so I just want to see us postpone it, but I don't think I would take it totally off the board.
Councilman Leopard.
I think the smart thing to do would be to cancel them, but I'm not in agreement. I think we need them. I think the people need it. It's something that I'm willing to spend $22,000 on, 20 for the fireworks and $2,000 for cleanup.
Councilman Jones.
Council people, we have to make some tough decisions sometime, and if we're out $700,000 and we don't have $22,000 for fireworks, if we don't have it, we don't have it. So I say cancel them for 2020.
Okay. All right. Are there any other comments? I'm going to ask for some consensus here to have the fireworks and allow the administration to advertise or pick the date that they want to have them. Councilman Jones.
Again, I say no. We don't have
Okay.
$20,000. So the mayor, the city administrator, a whole bunch of them can pick a date and et cetera, and et cetera. But if we don't have it, we don't have it.
Okay. How does everyone else feel? Councilwoman Yanatuno.
Do you want us to do a show of hands when you ask a specific question? Would that be easier?
Yeah, that would be easier.
Okay, let's do that.
Okay. All in favor of allowing the administration to pick a date to have the fireworks, raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Opposed? Raise your hand. Okay. I think, Ben, did you raise your hand? I might have missed you.
Yes, I'm in favor of
All
postponing.
right. So it's 6-1 to have the fireworks, let the city administration pick the date. Okay. Is there anything else? Councilman Leopard.
Thank you, Mr. President. I direct this to Aaron or Dale. I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor or City Administrator. The $600 for someone on layoff. I thought I read it was $600 per week. Is it
Correct.
per week or per month?
$600 per week that they are on layoff or furlough.
Okay, thank you.
Councilwoman Yanatuno.
Back to just, follow up on this fireworks thing. If worse comes worse, I understand Councilman Jones' concern because, we are short on money. However, in the past, this city has always stepped up. If there's a financial concern for something like that, people will donate. And so if it gets to that point where, wow, we're really still really hurting, we can give them the option then if they can step up and help us pay for the fireworks. And I think that would work.
Yeah, thanks for that comment. I know, I agree. In the past, we've had, foundations, we've had individuals, we've had companies that have stepped forward and been very generous in supporting that. If they know there's a need, people will step up and help fill that. So I'm confident that that would be the case. Anyone else? Is there anything else, Mayor, that we want to talk tonight about, or?
The only other item I believe was the, now that we have all the union contracts wrapped up, we still have not decided on salaries for non-union employees, non-union, non-elected official employees.
Okay.
That was in the email also that you had sent out. I want to thank council for the direction with the fireworks, because I agree. It's something that represents our nation's history, our independence, and it's a very special day for this country. And I'd like to see us try to still do something this year, whether it's much later in the year. Even if we have to shoot them off at Christmas time, I would like to see us do something to at least give people hope and to say this is America. It's our special Independence Day and our birthday. So thank you for allowing us to at least continue to give hope and try to get those things done. But so yeah, that's just the other item then, Council President. Are those the salary discussions around those employees that was sent in the email.
Okay, that was a part of the email. The non-union employees. In the past, we've, Mayor, in the past, what have we done?
In the past, I have always maintained since I began as mayor that our pay increases for city officials, for non-union employees, would be the same wage increases as the labor union employees received. Now, that has always been how it has gone. This year was a little different because of different unions agreeing at different times with contracts. The percentages weren't all the same. Essentially, the easiest way to explain it was, because there's all these other parts of the contract, but basically, if you want to look at it in the most raw form, the salary increases were around 2%. Other unions got 3%, but it was because they agreed much later in the year. So they still got roughly the same pay increase for the year. It was just depending on when they agreed to it. If that's making any sense. It's difficult to explain, I guess, without in writing, but it was in writing in the email, and I know it was explained thoroughly there. So we have to make a decision. Council controls the purse strings. I can't adjust anyone's salary here at the city. To be clear to the public, anyone that's listening, these salaries do not include city council members, the mayor, or the law director. We're elected officials. Our salaries are set by ordinance, and they have to be set before the term that we take office. So these salaries for the elected officials cannot be adjusted right now. So we're not talking about pay increases for any of ourselves. This is our non-union employees. So finance office, clerks, department heads, park staff, etc. Those are the folks that we're talking about. No elected officials are up for discussion. No elected officials will be getting pay increases.
Does anyone have any comments or feelings about it? Councilwoman Yanatuno.
I have a question first. When you talk about non-union employees, do they have the opportunity to join the unions? Or did they decide to not do a union?
So these would be any of our branches of the city that have not unionized. It's not for the employees that may have withdrawn. I don't think we have any employees that have withdrawn from the union that they're in, but it would be for any branches here that have non-unionized, like the clerks in the police department, parks, well, only some of the parks folks, because part of them fall under AFSCME, the entire finance office, municipal court, department heads that are non-elected. Am I missing anyone, Dale, that you can think of?
No, I think you've covered most of them.
Okay, because I did have a comment, but in some ways I'm not sure that it actually applies, because my husband's always been union and I've always been management. And so I do understand both sides of that issue. And so my comment was going to be that I don't think it's fair when unions fight for their contracts, their wages, and then the other people can go along for a ride. But that's not I'm thinking that's not what you're really saying here. Because I have seen situations where people didn't want to be in the union, so they didn't want to pay union dues, but they always got to reap the benefits of the union. And so, but that's not what we're talking about, correct?
That would be correct, Councilwoman. This is strictly, like we said, parts of the city that have never unionized, like our management team, the department heads. So you're talking your fire chief, your police chief, head of public works, head of parks department, water pollution control superintendent, city administrator, HR, any of the secretaries, administrative assistants, clerks, everyone in the finance office, so income tax, sewer revenue office, payroll, those are the positions we're talking about. They're just parts of the city that have never unionized or legally can't unionize is the folks we're talking about now. Our entire staff at the municipal court, except for the judge being an elected official, he's not allowed to have his pay adjusted. So it would just be his staff. So those are the folks we're talking about, not folks that have, I guess for lack of a better term, seceded from the unions.
Well, so with that information, my comment would be, or my vote would be in the lines, I understand that the others are getting the raises, but I would ask that they hold off in light of the financial situation and wait until we do the wage reopeners or wait until things stabilize and then talk about it again. But I don't see how we can give them to them now.
Councilman Leopard?
I don't think we should punish those employees just because of COVID-19.
So you're in favor of the raises?
Yes.
Okay. Councilman Jones?
Unmute here. I'm not 100% sure what you're asking us council members for, but I would suggest we leave it to the administration, Mayor Mons, city administrator. They've dealt with negotiations and contracts and non-union, union employees, negotiations for years and years. I would leave it up to their expertise.
What council would have to act, though, we can't adjust the pay without council action. So that's, I guess, why we're here for city council. We gave, in the email that was sent out, what a 3% wage increase would be, which would be what would be the equivalent of what our labor unions got since we're so far into the year. They had the 2%, but that was at the start of the year. The labor unions that just recently settled got 3 because they had that first several months of the year that was missed out on. So where we're talking now is if council is going to agree that non-union employees should get the same wage increases, you all are going to have to adjust the budget. We can't do that. So that's why we're asking Councilman Jones for what council wants to do, because we need to either have you pass legislation, or if you take no action, then no one can get a pay increase. So there were no pay increases budgeted for this year.
Anyone else? Anyone else? I've got a comment. In the private sector, which I grew up in, people don't get raises every year. Right now, it's unfortunate that we had these union negotiations this year, and this happened to us, because I think we would have been better off had it been in another year. So that aside, I think that you're better off having a job. We have a responsibility. We don't have the money to pay it. But that doesn't mean at some point this year, when things begin to improve, that we can't go back and revisit this. And because we value our employees. We think they do a great job. We want them to be taken care of. But the reality is we just don't have the money. And for us, it's like we had this discussion a week ago about it doesn't make sense for us to go out and spend money that we don't have, or to give up money that we don't have. So that's my 2 cents worth. I don't think that it's the end of the world if we postpone these raises until we're in a better position that we know that we're going to have the money to afford them. That's just my opinion. Anyone else? Councilman Jones.
Thank you, Mr. President. A non-union employee is just as valuable as a union employee. We cannot run the city of Tiffin without non-union employees. Just because they didn't band together and form a union, and 2% for our value employees, and I'm not talking out of both sides of my mouth. I know we're $700,000 in arrears, but we have to recognize our non-union employees. So I say, give it to them.
Councilman Leopard.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think it would be very hard for a department of 4 or 5 people to find a union that would represent them.
Councilman Jones.
Okay, what am I saying here? I'm not saying they're going to ban and form a union or a small union. I'm saying they're valuable employees. They deserve a raise.
Councilman Schuff.
Yeah, just to highlight on some of the stuff that you were saying earlier, I think Council President Fote nailed a lot of it, the private sector as opposed to public and everything. But if we had union negotiations on a different year, we would have been able to handle this a little bit better. Just circumstances kind of happened here this year. And we made an agreement that we have to follow through on, but this is one that we can always look at a later time. I'm not saying that the non-union doesn't deserve the increase or whatever that percentage may be, but circumstances have changed here the last couple months, and I think we need to look at that. I agree with a lot of what Council President Fote had to say.
Councilman Gillig, you had your hand up.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Mayor, did I see that we'd be looking at probably an increase to the general fund of $27,000 if we were to do the 2% raise?
Mayor's muted.
City Administrator.
I'm trying to call up the email right now, Councilman Gillig. I think the 27,000 was the 3%. I think it was 18 something for 2%. Just got to find the email.
That's right, Mayor.
Was that correct?
You're right, Mayor, yes.
Yeah. Kathy, I'm sorry. I keep forgetting you're here. Tell us, Kathy, you're right here.
Yeah, it was 18 something for the 2% and the 27 was the 3%.
Councilman Gillig.
Well, honestly, we can't in good conscience draw a line in the sand and say, we absolutely positively need to have fireworks, but we're not going to take care of our employees. That makes zero sense to me. I mean, $18,000, we've got to find a way to, especially if this is the precedent for the last, 2 terms.
Councilman Perry.
I 100% agree with Mr. Gillig. I feel like we gotta find a way to take care of these guys. I think 2%. We can find money for fireworks. I think we can find money for this. So I would agree with give them the 2% raise.
Councilman Jones.
I'm not sure I would agree 100% with anybody, but based on the new information Councilman Gillig brought up, 18,000 for 2%. Let's give them a 1% raise. Cost us $9,000. We're still recognizing the non-union employees. We're telling them they're valuable to the city of Tiffin and the city council. So I would think 1% and go from there. Keep talking.
Well, anyone else? Councilwoman Yanatuno.
Well, first of all, I don't want people thinking I'm picking on the non-union employees because I by no means am. I think they do a great job. I kind of like the mix of what we're talking about. Councilman Jones, that's an interesting point to at least do something, just like we're doing with all the union contracts, and then we're reopening in, I think, September, and then relook at it in September and bring them up to where you usually like to do it if we're sitting better. I think that's a win-win both ways. We're doing something, even though we really probably shouldn't be, but at least we're doing something and then looking at it again in a few months.
All right, I see a couple of heads nodding. Anyone else? Councilman Perry.
I would agree with that. Maybe doing like a 1% now and then look at it in the future and see if we can make that, if we're doing better than we thought, maybe do an additional 2% at that point, but let's reevaluate later. But I agree. Let's do something for them now.
All right. Councilor Leopard, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I think we need to do the 2%. We'll reevaluate all employees in September. Is that what we're saying on a reevaluation?
Well, I heard 1% and then we're going to reevaluate, but Councilman Jones?
Give me a second. My thoughts got to come back to me here.
Go ahead.
What it is? Would you or someone like me to make a motion? If that's what we're looking for, I'll be glad to make a motion for a 1% pay raise for the non-union employees for the city of Tiffin.
Okay, is there anything else? Are you looking at something later on in the year?
No, no.
Or just 1% right now?
I'm just saying 1%. Don't want them getting their hopes up later on later in 2020. And if we don't have the money later in 2020, we don't have it. So
Right.
no, I'm just saying 1%.
All right, we have a motion. Is there a second for 1% raise for non-union employees? Is there a second? Councilwoman Yanatuno?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to give the non-union employees a 1% pay increase. When would it be effective?
Well, we got Brent draft the legislation for the next council meeting, which would be on June the 1st. So based off of, if you all pass it that night, Kathy, how quickly after that with pay weeks, do you have that in front of you? Would that go into effect then?
I don't have the dates in front of me, but I know the next payroll would be that week. It would be, next check date is June 5th. So then it wouldn't hit until the next pay period, which would be the second pay in June.
Okay. So it would start off probably on that following week then.
Okay. City Administrator Thornton?
Just a question. The 1% would equate, Kathy, to really a 0.5% raise because it's just the last half of the year. Is that correct? Am I reading that correctly?
Yeah.
The net effect would be 0.5%. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
That
So
is,
we have a motion. Go ahead.
no,
Did you
go
want to
ahead.
say something, Mayor?
No, I was going to say that's something to keep in mind. So this doesn't take effect until halfway through the year, that our non-union employees are really only going to have a 0.5% pay increase for this year is what it equates to over the entire year. So just so we're clear on all of that.
Okay. Everybody understand that? All right, we have a motion and a second to provide a 1% pay increase effective in June for non-union employees for the city of Tiffin. Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, did you have your hand up, Councilman Leopard?
Yes, I did, Mr. President. I will be a no vote, and the only reason I'm going to be a no vote is I would rather see the 2%.
Okay. Councilman Gillig?
Thank you, Mr. President. I will also be a no vote in the hopes that this motion will fail, and then I intend to make a motion for the 2% pay increase.
Okay. Councilman Jones?
I'll go on record saying I will support the 1% pay increase.
Well, you made the motion.
Okay, fine.
Okay. Any other discussion? Councilman Perry?
I thought the 1% would back pay them the whole year. I guess I will also be a no vote because I would like to see the 2% to give them the 1% for the rest of the year, and then turn into the 2% next year.
Okay. Councilman Jones?
Fellow council people, this is going to be a long night. We're recognizing, the reason I brought up even the 1%, we're recognizing the non-union employees, that they're valuable to the city of Tiffin. We don't have $18,000 to make them whole, as I think some of you are thinking. So let's stick to the 1% and be happy about it. I don't know why you're differing with me.
Okay. Councilman Leopard?
Thank you, Mr. President. Because I'm not gonna be the one going to, let's just say, a sewer clerk and say you're not as important to me as a fireman is or as a policeman is.
Okay. All right. Councilman Jones?
What was that again, Councilman Leopard? What did you say again?
What I'm saying is a sewer clerk is just as important to me as someone on the fire department or police department.
Okay, thank you.
Each person has their own set of skills.
All right. Does anyone have any other comments? Anything different? All right. Councilwoman Yanatuno?
Well, we haven't heard anything from Councilman Schuff or Councilwoman Boyle, so I'm kind of wondering how they feel about it. Because I'm not really, stuck one way or the other. And I do feel they do a good job. I'm not trying to penalize them. It's just that we don't really have the money is the only reason why I'm kind of balking myself on this. So I kind of want to hear what they've got to say about it before we do a vote.
Councilwoman Boyle?
Yeah, I'm really torn, to be honest. I have to say I'm leaning towards Councilman Jones's motion, just to say, with our financial situation. I completely understand where you guys are coming from, though, on the other half of it. But I will say that I'm leaning towards the 1%.
Okay. Councilman Schuff?
I don't think this is a great time to be giving raises. Honestly, I would do one. If we're going to do the fireworks, do the fireworks, give the 2%. If we're not going to do the fireworks, don't do the raises either. I'd almost have them go hand in hand. Are we going to watch our pocketbook, or are we going to help our non-union employees and still the fireworks? I mean, I wish we would kind of just go one way or another, because we're trying to figure out winners and losers here. Our union employees and our non-union employees, they're all valuable to us. We want to help them out, but I just don't think raises at this time with the budget shortfall we're having makes a ton of sense. But like I said, I'd either give them the pay increase, have the fireworks, or don't have both.
Okay, Councilman Jones.
I hear several of you on council saying we have $25,000 for fireworks that we don't have, but we can't come up with $9,000 to reward our employees of the city of Tiffin.
Okay, are there any more comments? Because I'm gonna call the question. Okay, Councilman Jones.
I guess I'm like Councilman Gillig. I'm hoping this 1% will fail so I can reinstitute a 1 1/4% increase.
Okay. All right. City Administrator, did you have something? Dale?
Not at all. Nothing.
Okay. Okay, thank you. All right. Ann, I'm going to ask you to call the roll on this.
Unmuting. Sorry. Councilwoman Yanatuno.
Yes.
Councilman Jones.
Yes.
Councilman Leopard.
He's muted.
Councilman Leopard.
No.
Councilman Perry.
No.
Councilman Schuff.
No.
Councilwoman Boyle.
Yes.
Councilman Gillig.
No.
All right. The motion fails by a vote of 4-3. Councilman Jones.
Two things. First one is it's going to be a long 7.5 years working with the other council people. And item two, I don't want to be tagged as a Grinch who stole fireworks. If we can come up with $700,000 and have a balanced budget, I'm saying let's have the fireworks. I'm not saying let's not have the fireworks. People are looking forward to it. It's a motivator, something for them to look up to. But if we don't have the money, we don't have the money. So that's
Okay.
my second comment.
All right. Anyone else? Okay. Does anybody else have any different feelings about this issue? Because we're going to move on if we're done with it. It just failed. So nobody's getting any raises. Councilman Gillig.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would so move that we propose a 2%. We ask the law director to prepare legislation to institute the 2% raise amongst our employees.
Non-union employees.
As the non-union employees. Thank you.
Okay. We have a motion. Is there a second? Councilman Leopard.
I'll second the motion, Mr. President.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second to provide a 2% pay increase for non-union employees. I would assume, I shouldn't use that word, but effective in June. Councilman Gillig?
Yes, Mr. President, thank you.
Okay. All right, any discussion? Councilman Jones?
I will make a motion that we give the
You already
non-union.
have a motion on the table. You can't make another motion. We're discussing this motion. Do you have a comment about that?
No.
Okay. We have a motion, a second. Is there any other discussion? All right, seeing none, I'm going to ask the clerk to call the roll.
Councilwoman Yanatuno,
No.
Councilman Jones,
No.
Councilman Leopard,
Yes.
Councilman Perry,
Yes.
Councilman Schuff,
Yes.
Councilwoman Boyle.
No.
I'm sorry, Councilwoman Boyle,
All right, no, sorry.
Councilman Gillig.
Yes.
The motion passes with a vote of 4-3. So, Law Director, if we could have that legislation for our next meeting.
Yes, it will be prepared.
Thank you. Is there anything else? Mayor?
I appreciate everybody having some of these discussions this evening. I know they're not easy decisions. They're without a doubt not going to be the last tough decisions that we all have to make here. So I appreciate council having this open, honest discussion and providing the administration with feedback. It's much appreciated. So in the meantime, if council has any ideas, either tonight or in the future, on how we can make adjustments to our budget to ensure that we remain financially stable, we of course will gladly take those suggestions either tonight or in the coming weeks via phone call, email, etc. We appreciate everyone making those very difficult decisions this evening.
Councilman Leopard?
Thank you. The question will be for the mayor. Our school police officer, would that make any difference in the budget?
So you're saying if we were...
If we eliminated that, would it make what effect would it have?
Actually, if we eliminated that, it would hurt our budget further because Tiffin City Schools pays, is it 75%, I believe? I'm trying to recall from memory the contract that we signed with them. I believe it's 75% of his salary is paid by Tiffin City Schools. We pick up the other 25%. If we were to eliminate that agreement, he would then come back on our books entirely versus the school paying for that cost. So he'd come back on our books, which would at that point almost assuredly, because of the financial situation, cause someone to likely be laid off. It wouldn't be him because of his seniority. So it actually would hurt us to eliminate that agreement. It's saving us money currently.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, thank you for the idea.
Councilman Jones?
Well, I have about a dozen items I thought we could discuss to maybe save some money in the budget, but I have about 12 of them here. I can forward them to city management or discuss them now.
Okay, I think that'd be a good idea to forward them, Ken. One other thing I was going to bring up, just to remind everybody, it was in the email that I sent out, but in the future meetings, we're going to start the committee of the whole meeting at 6:15 so that we can discuss primarily these budget issues. So I just want everybody to kind of remember that in your planning. Is there anything else we can move ahead?
That covers all of my budget discussion, Mr. President. I'll cover just a couple of other items during my mayor's report, but I promise I'll leave that really short since I've already taken up a lot of your time this evening.
Okay, time well spent. We'll get back to the agenda. Hopefully everybody got a copy of the minutes from the regular meeting and the committee of the whole meeting. I had one tiny correction on the I think it was in the committee of the whole meeting. The date of the Law and Community Planning meeting was May 11th and not May 22nd. Other than that,
Oh, okay, so I'll correct that. Thank you.
are there any other additions, corrections, deletions to the minutes? Hearing none, the minutes will stand as presented, approved as presented. We'll go to committee reports. Finance Committee, Councilman Gillig.
No report, Mr. President.
Thank you. Law and Community Planning, Councilwoman Boyle.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Yeah, we had a very lengthy committee meeting last Monday, the 11th, and therefore my committee report is extremely detailed. In the interest of time, I would prefer to provide a brief summary of the meeting as opposed to reading my report in its entirety. You all should have a copy of the report in your emails. Also, earlier today, I dropped off a hard copy in your council mailboxes. Also, if there's anyone from the public who would like a copy of the official report, I can send that to you if you just contact me. So to give a brief summary, as I said, the meeting took place last Monday, May 11th, virtually through Zoom. We had all members of the Law and Community Planning Committee present, as well as all of council. Additionally, members from TSEP, County Commissioner Shane Thomas, and a couple of local restaurant and bar owners were in attendance as well. The purpose of the meeting was to discuss the Laird Arcade Brewery's request to revisit Dora and any other business that may come before the committee. The mayor gave an overview of the proposed application and the Dora route. And the application reflects Dora from 11 a.m. to 11 p.m., 7 days a week. The proposed map was noted that it was an extended area than the proposed map that was presented to council last year when Dora was discussed. The time extended hours and the area extension are to ensure businesses are receiving as much business as possible during this time, especially because of COVID. The other major highlight of this proposal is this version of Dora does expire this year, December 31st. So therefore, if council does not want to proceed with this version, it will terminate at that time. Also important to note that was discussed in this meeting is if at any time council feels that Dora is being abused or it's not working well, or we need to implement further restrictions, we can do so at any time. So I think that's really important for people to know. So a motion was made by Councilman Leopard to proceed with this Dora application and was seconded by Dan Perry. The motion carried unanimously. The last topic that was discussed was President Fote asked if there was a permitting process for food trucks coming into the city. The mayor confirmed there is a process currently. However, he is working on a policy for public right-of-way usage for restaurant and food trucks, et cetera. Also, the Downtown Development Committee is working on finalizing guidelines pertaining to this as well. So that completes my brief summary report, if anyone has any questions.
Thank you, Councilwoman Boyle. Are there any questions for Councilwoman Boyle? Thank you. Materials and equipment, Councilman Jones.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have no written report, but I do have an update. I was out to Bryce's Parks Department one day last week, and I can't tell you what day it was, but I saw a brand new shiny fire truck out there, and quite a few of the firefighters were scurrying over it. And I talked to Lieutenant Holman, and he said it just came in from, I think they transferred it to Finley. The outside contractor is spending 3 full days here in Tiffin, going over all 3 crews, showing them the bells, whistles of the new fire truck. So it's here in Tiffin.
Very good. Personnel and Labor Relations, Councilman Perry.
No report, Mr. President.
Thank you. Recreation and Public Property, Councilwoman Yanatuno.
No report, Mr. President.
Thank you. Street Sidewalks and Sewers, Councilman Leopard.
No report, Mr. President.
Thank you. Economic Development and Downtown Planning, Councilman Schuff.
No report at this time, Mr. President.
Thank you. Does anyone see a need for a committee of the whole meeting? All right, we'll move ahead with reports to the officers. His Honor Aaron D. Mons.
Thank you, Mr. President. Like I said, I'll keep things as short as possible. First of which, I'm going to do it now so we don't forget. That is to announce CDBG public hearing. Because TCEP is going to host this for us. I'm just going to read the email briefly that I received from Audrey Flood. The first CDBG public hearing has been set for Tuesday, May the 26th at 7 p.m. The second public hearing will be set for June 9th at 7 p.m. The City of Tiffin intends to apply to the Ohio Development Services Agency for funding under the Community Development Block Grant CDBG Small Cities Program, a federally funded program administered by the state. The City of Tiffin is eligible for approximately $150,000 for fiscal year 2020 CDBG funding, providing the allocation is similar to fiscal year 2018 and the city meets the applicable program requirements. Hearings will provide citizens with pertinent information about CDBG program requirements. The CDBG program can fund a broad range of activities, including economic development projects, street, water supply, drainage, and sanitary sewer improvements, park construction and improvements, demolition of unsafe structures, rehabilitation of housing and neighborhood facilities, and downtown revitalization. The activities must be designed to primarily benefit low and moderate income LMI persons or aid in the prevention or elimination of slums and blight. Citizens are encouraged to attend this meeting on May 26th at 7 p.m. to provide their input to the city's CDBG program. Due to current COVID-19 conditions, the hearings will be held virtually. The information and link to join the virtual meetings via phone or video are posted on the city's website. They'll be posted soon. They're not quite there yet. And will be posted on the city's event Facebook page. The information was also announced in this past Saturday's Advertiser Tribune. If anyone wishes to comment but is unable to attend the meetings, please email Audrey Flood at Flood, FLOOD, at tiffinseneca.org. So that information will be posted on the city's website soon. It was in the paper Saturday. So 2 public hearings, May 26th at 7 p.m., June 9th at 7 p.m. For those meetings. You can attend basically from the public, just like this format we're in right now. It's open to council members, anyone that lives in the city, for all of those various ideas on how we can spend essentially $150,000, but it must be utilized on those criteria that I mentioned in the body of that public meeting announcement. So those will be coming up, so we would appreciate public input. Couple of other quick items. We already covered youth sports leagues. I just want to reiterate, in case we have anyone new watching, that summer ball leagues are permitted to restart based off the governor's orders for non-contact sports. The city of Tiffin does not run any of the ball leagues. They are all run by a private organization. So citizens that have questions over whether or not their child's softball or baseball league will resume this summer need to direct those questions to their league commissioners or coaches, because the city does not run those programs. I'm going to answer a question because I saw it on our Facebook Live. Someone had asked the question about playgrounds reopening. That is out of our control locally. It's specifically listed by Governor DeWine and Dr. Acton as playgrounds are to remain closed. However, as soon as the state of Ohio does lift the playground closure order, we do plan to reopen the city of Tiffin's playgrounds. So we're not going to leave them closed any longer than we are ordered to. So they will be reopening once we receive that information from the state of Ohio. A couple of other things I wanted to cover. Had some questions come up because a slightly incorrect release was sent out as far as Chick-fil-A. Just so you all know on council, in case you get any calls, Hedges Boyer Park is not closed for Chick-fil-A. It's just the one entrance is being closed so that we can control traffic going through the park. Chick-fil-A is going to be set up on Wednesday to allow service because, to be honest, traffic was backed up far too bad. 2 Wednesdays ago downtown, we were having all sorts of traffic issues. Putting it at the park and allowing people to go one direction around the oval to utilize that truck would be much easier. The park is still, other than the items that has been closed by Governor DeWine or Dr. Acton, everything else is open at the parks. You can still use any of the facilities. If you want to take a walk or play catch with the football with your child or baseball or whatever, those are still permitted. The park is not closed. So that's just one thing I want to point out. It was stated incorrectly. We did send a corrected release out. Park is still wide open except for the items closed for health reasons by the state. So that is one thing to clear up. A couple of things that came out of we had the restaurant task force. I want to thank Councilman Schuff, who sat on the restaurant task force, or the small business task force. City Administrator Dale Thornton sat on the small business task force as well. A lot of fantastic ideas came out of that, one of which is a system that we're going to be sharing countywide about local small family businesses, whether it's a restaurant or a retail store or whatever. We're going to have a ton of people sharing this post. So the Chamber of Commerce and Destination Seneca County are daily going to feature a business, and then they're asking as many people as possible to share that post, from the mayor to the county commissioners to the health department, as many people that will get on and share that post we want to, so that we can get all of that information out about these locally owned small businesses in the Tiffin community that are really struggling right now. So we're going to do everything we can to try to push that information out and get it in front of people, because maybe they've forgotten about business A, B, and C. Maybe they didn't even know they existed. So that was one idea that came out of it. It's already up and running. I think they had their first post today featuring Fort Ball Pizza, which is a great locally owned restaurant here in town. Some of the other things that came out of that were the picnic tables that you see downtown. Bryce Kuhn from the Parks Department, his staff, and Public Works moved those tables downtown. Then we had volunteers cover them with plastic. We're aware of the high winds that we had, damaged a couple of pieces of plastic. The volunteers are already got it lined up. They're going to come down and fix those. There are sanitation stands so that before you sit down, you can wipe your table off. But we all know the reason this was focused specifically on downtown was because in these conversations with this small business task force, the realization came out that downtown businesses really have no outdoor property. And because of guidelines that the state of Ohio issued for restaurants, they didn't specifically limit capacity by number. How they limited capacity was they require it for social distancing. Tables have to be 6 feet or more apart. Well, we have a lot of our restaurants, prime example, take Reno's or Madison Street Tavern. Those are not very large restaurants. They don't have much space at all inside. And if they spread those tables out or sit people every other booth, their capacity is less than half of what it is at a busy time. So by the tables being placed downtown, these restaurants that have no outdoor space now can allow their patrons to pick up meals and go sit outside and eat them. Or if they're close enough and they choose to walk out and wait on the table, then that's the decision of the business. So that's, I think, something that's really going to help a lot of these. I know on Saturday, there were tons of people sitting out in downtown Tiffin enjoying the various food from all different restaurants. I think Dora, once council, I'm hoping, passes Dora, people will be able to also drink an adult beverage out there responsibly as they're eating their meal. So just to keep that on your radar. What also came out of the small business task force was, of course, DORA, which we already talked to you all about, and that legislation is in the works. I know Council Clerk Ann Forrest received the DORA application packet Friday morning from myself and the city administrator, so that is ready to go forward as far as DORA goes. And then another neat idea that we came up with out of the small business task force was the creation of a right-of-way / public property use permit. So any of our restaurants that would like to expand their outdoor seating into what may be considered public property, they can apply for this permit. We have no fee attached to it. It's free. So it could be all sorts of things. I know JT's Bagel Bar has been setting up in our parking lots downtown. Well, maybe she wants to take that to the next level and almost do a quasi restaurant and bring her own tables and chairs and set them up 6 feet apart. She could apply for this free permit so that not only is she having walk-up service, but people may actually want to sit down. Or Reno's, if they want to run tables all the way down Market Street, all the way to Washington Street, they could apply for this permit. Now, of course, they'll have to follow ADA guidelines to ensure there's still handicap accessibility so that someone in a wheelchair can get through those sorts of things. But it's just another way to allow businesses to expand their capacity. Maybe Washington Street Outfitters or Simply Susan's wants to have sidewalk sales where they bring tables out or some racks of clothing or other items that they're selling. They'll be able to apply for one of these permits for no cost so that they can have that out there and increase their size of their store, their restaurant, so that they can increase the capacity of what they're allowed to have in with customers. I guess, you know, Danny, you at the barber shop, if you wanted to get creative, can move a chair outside and have additional haircuts going on. So those are the kind of things that we're trying to do to be proactive to help businesses, especially the mom and pop stores that really don't have a whole lot of space to do expansions or have that capacity like Walmart and Kroger and Lowe's do, to where they, you know, Walmart, I think Tiffin Walmart has about 1,100 person capacity. So right now, that's some of the struggle that you run into. They're so big, they can allow so many people, and it really doesn't affect Walmart. But a small store like, you know, Varsity Barber Shop, like Madison Street Tavern, Simply Susan's, Washington Street Outfitters, they're such a small store, it does dramatically impact the amount of business that they're able to do. So we're just trying to think outside the box with this task force and any kind of creative solutions that we can come up with to potentially help our local businesses. We're trying to leave no stone unturned. So so far, a lot of fantastic ideas have come out of that. We've already got quite a few of them implemented. So just wanted to kind of update you all on where things are with that. With that, I've probably talked enough. So if there are any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
Any questions for the mayor? Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Clerk of Council, Ann Forrest.
No report, Mr. President.
Thank you. Director of Finance, Kathy Kaufman.
No report, Mr. President.
Thank you. Director of Law, Brent T. Howard.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Just briefly, 3 items. Council has 2 items of legislation that's on the table right now, and I wanted to review with you what you'll need to do with those items. The first is Ordinance 19-79. That involves a rezoning of property up on the north end near Six's Corners regarding the Dollar General matter. To remind you, the Zoning Board of Appeals, they are meeting tomorrow in the afternoon to hear a area variance request made by by Dollar General. If that is approved, then they will have received the necessary approval to proceed with their project. And that means that this legislation should then be removed from the table, not tonight, but at the meeting in June, the first meeting in June, at June 1st. And council then could do 2 things. They could either vote it down, or by Rule 17 of council's rules under Section 121.02 of the code, the council member who introduced the legislation, which is Councilwoman Boyle, she could move to withdraw the legislation, and the council could vote to withdraw it because the matter is essentially rendered moot because of the other procedural process that the Dollar General chose. So that should remain on the table tonight, and then we'll report back after the Zoning Board of Appeals tomorrow, and you can take action at your first meeting in June. That's one item on the table. The second item is the ordinance 20-25, which zones approximately 1+ acre parcel owned by Savannah Seca that is being annexed to the city. That property as you know, you had a public hearing regarding the zoning request, and the Planning Commission, per charter process, they met after the last council meeting, and they approved the zoning request and recommended by letter, which you have in your packet, the council approved the ordinance as presented. So that means that tonight there should be a motion under motions to remove ordinance 20-25 from the table so it can be read for the second time this evening. The last item I have, and this is another procedural matter, the mayor reported that he had submitted to the clerk of council a DORA application. And so that now is presented to city council. And you need to follow your the statutory procedure for a DORA establishment. And that is, the next step is under motions, you should move to direct the clerk of council to publish a public notice in the newspaper for 2 consecutive weeks, once a week, and it should start this week. I have prepared this notice to comply with the statute. It states that the application and the ordinance will be on file during business hours of City Hall. Even with the COVID-19, we've made arrangements so it'll be out front of City Hall so people can come and see it and review it and read the application and the ordinance. Also, I understand that those documents will be placed on the city's website, so they'll be available. There also, the public notice is scheduled for June 15th. And at 7 o'clock, when the council meeting opens, right after it is open that evening. And that public hearing will be via Zoom. The instructions for the public to participate in that hearing by Zoom are contained in the public notice. So again, you need to, under motions this evening, move to authorize and direct the clerk of council to publish the required public notice for the DORA application in the Advertiser Tribune. Are there any questions about any of the 3 procedural matters that I mentioned?
Councilwoman Boyle, do you have all that? Very good. Under the for the public hearing, we'll announce that at our next meeting.
You can announce that at the next meeting. I think that's a good idea, is to remind the public. But the requirements by statute are to publish the notice in the newspaper, which we will take care of.
Okay. Is that it?
That concludes my report.
Thank you. Any questions for the law director? Mayor?
Yeah, Rich, because of how we didn't have committee of the whole tonight, I was never able to go over things we need suspended this evening.
Okay.
Are you okay with me doing that now?
Absolutely.
Okay. The first of which is ordinance 2062. And that is because the deadline to apply for that grant is in early June. So in order for the engineer's office to have time to write and submit the grant before the deadline, we would ask that City Council suspend and pass this evening ordinance 2062. We're talking about financial issues, so any money that we can obtain from grants to help pay for street projects right now would be highly beneficial. So we're asking council pass that this evening so Engineer Watson can apply for the grant. The next is ordinance 1984, and that is just to appropriate the $30,000 that we received for the State Highway Improvement Fund. If you recall, that is to help with the flow of traffic in the community. We receive grant dollars. This is to just appropriate those funds. So it's nothing new. Council's been aware of this from when we obtained the grant. We are also requesting suspension of ordinance 2064. The reason for that We had a large fire and the claim is over $40,000. If there are any specific questions, I can let Kathy explain this one. This is not city money. It's just money that runs through us from this escrow account. It is not necessarily, it's not city income money that if we just refuse to pay it, it does anything to our funds. It's money in, money out. Kathy, I don't know if you have any more details, or Brent, how the fire escrow fund works. It's essentially insurance payouts.
Yeah, I can just briefly explain. When there is a fire claim for damaged property by our local code, the insurance company is supposed to pay a portion of the insurance proceeds to the city for us to hold in escrow to ensure that the property is taken care of, that whatever either a demolition or other work is satisfied. And so we're just holding third-party money, but you have to budget this money in the city budget in order for it to be allowed to be paid out. And that's what you are authorizing by this ordinance.
Anything else, Mayor?
Nope, those are it.
A question on ordinance 20-58. Do we want to table that? Mayor?
No, Mr. President, that is good to go.
Okay. Thank you. We're now under written communications.
At Mayor's request for legislation number 20-30, Shawn Avenue Improvements Project.
Mayor's request for legislation 20-30 will be filed in the clerk's office. An ordinance has been prepared tonight, 20-62.
At Finance Director's request for legislation number 20-25 to amend the 2020 Budget Ordinance 19-84 to appropriate funds in the State Highway Improvement Budget in the amount of $30,000.
Finance Director's request for legislation F 20-25 will be filed in the clerk's office. Ordinance 20-63 has been prepared for this evening.
Finance Director's request for legislation number F 20-26 to amend the 2020 Budget Ordinance 19-84 to appropriate funds in the fire claims escrow budget in the amount of $25,000.
The Finance Director's request for legislation F 20-26 will be held on file in the clerk's office. Legislation ordinance 20-64 has been prepared for this evening.
And then I have the letter from the Planning Commission dated May 12th regarding ordinance 2025. They saying that they reviewed the ordinance and for Savannah Seca and proposed for annexation from Hopewell Township. And they voted unanimously to recommend that the City Council approve this ordinance.
The Planning Commission letter will be held on file in the clerk's office.
And then the mayor's letter of appreciation to Julie Hirsch for her donation of $100 to be used towards the flowers for the downtown streetscape. That concludes the written communications.
Thank you. We're now under motions. Councilman Leopard.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would ask that ordinance number 20-25 be removed from the table and read for the second reading.
We have a motion to second. We have a motion. Is there a second? Councilwoman Yanatuno.
I'll second, Mr. President.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second to remove ordinance 20-25 from the table. Is there any discussion? Clerk will call the vote.
Councilwoman Yanatuno.
Yes.
Councilman Jones.
Yes.
Councilman Leopard.
Yes.
Councilman Perry.
Yes.
Councilman Schuff.
Yes.
Councilwoman Boyle.
Yes.
Councilman Gillig.
Yes.
Ordinance 20-25 is removed from the table with a vote of 7-0. Councilwoman Boyle.
Yes, sorry. Yes, I'd like to make a motion to direct the clerk of council to publish the required public notice regarding DORA in the Advertiser Tribune for the next 2 weeks.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Councilman
say that?
Perry.
I'll second, Mr. President.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second to direct the clerk to require a public notice for the DORA. Is there any discussion? Councilman, or Law Director, sorry.
Yeah, just to add to that motion that this is for the public hearing that is scheduled for June 15th at 7:00 p.m. I think that needs to be part of the record.
Okay.
Thank you. Sorry.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? Clerk will call the vote.
Councilwoman Yanatuno,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Leopard,
Yes.
Perry,
Yes.
Shuff,
Yes.
Boyle,
Yes.
Gillig.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Never a dull moment.
Gotta love 'em.
Okay. Ann?
Yes, oh, I'm sorry. Okay, we're on the resolutions and ordinances. Okay. Ordinance number 20-25, introduced by Steve Leopard. Ordinance zoning approximately 1.019 acres of land owned by Sabina Seca LLC and proposed for annexation from Hopewell Township as Zone R3 Single Family Residential District, compatible with adjacent land use and meeting requirements of Tiffin City Charter and the codified ordinances.
What did you just read?
2025. Ordinance 2025.
It's tabled.
Didn't we just pull that?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah, we just removed it, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
This is the second reading of ordinance 20-25.
Okay.
Thanks for keeping me straight.
Takes a village for us all. Ordinance number 20-58, introduced by Tyler Shuff. Ordinance approving a 6-month extension of deadlines and requirements contained in the city's real estate purchase agreement with Tiffin Riverfront Development LLC.
This is the third reading of ordinance 20-58. Councilman Shaw.
Yes, Mr. President. We've had some contact here. People call me here over the last week. They had questions for this, and I guess I'll ask the administration. As far as the project goes, do you know if they have financing secured or financing in place?
It was stated at the TSEP board meeting by Mr. Hernando that he has financing in place. It was stated at the board meeting, it was in their meeting minutes. However, the city does not have any financial record of that if he has that, because we do not ask private developers for their proof of financing on any of our projects.
Okay. Yeah, I was just curious because I was asked the question and I assumed it was in place or ready to go, and I was approached with that question, so I was told to ask. So
yeah, not a problem.
Thank you.
Okay, we should move ahead with the motion then we can get into discussion about it. Councilman Shuff.
Yes, Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion that we pass ordinance 20-58.
Thank you. Is there a second? Councilwoman Yanatuno.
I'll second, Mr. President.
We have a motion and a second to pass ordinance 20-58. Is there any discussion? Councilwoman Boyle.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm struggling with this one. I'm not understanding why the reasoning for the request is due to economic impact, yet we have somebody stating, the head of this project, that their finances were in place. I guess my question is, if that's the reasoning, it just seems kind of odd to me. It just seems off. And I don't know. I guess I'm concerned that the extension request is going to keep coming based off of this information. So I'm just voicing my concerns, but I don't know. I just don't know that this request makes sense, or if there's a way that we could, put in some sort of confirmation that this is the one-time only request that that they will receive.
Mayor or Law Director, you have a comment to that?
I know, I guess there's quite a few things in there to kind of unpack and answer. So I know that what was told to the administration for the request was because of the overall impact of COVID-19 and the fact that hotels are basically backing away from building new hotels right now, and that sort of thing was the concern. And then also being able to sell condominium units right now in this market was the other concern that was listed. So I know from my standpoint, we're not very willing to entertain another 6-month extension beyond this one if there's, there still isn't a stone overturned yet to start building the project. So at some point it's going to have to move forward, or it's going to have to be postponed indefinitely or whatever. But I guess that's the best I can give you right now.
Councilman Leopard.
I also had a businessman approach me last week with the same concerns that Tyler shared, and also with Bridget's concerns about extra extensions.
Law Director.
Yeah, I was involved in some discussions regarding the extension, and I believe that there was some interest in the developer about even additional time. I think it was the administration's belief that this should be a short time period. And so that's 6 months was as long as I believe the administration was willing to discuss with the developer. Keep in mind too, council will need to approve any further extensions if you would approve this one, so that you could control this. So it's not the administration's ultimate decision, it is council's decision.
Councilman Leopard.
I kind of thought it was kind of funny when, we currently have two alley vacation requests right now from Hernando, that Mr. Hernando, the property he doesn't even own. This is going to be sitting for a long period of time.
Councilwoman Boyle.
Yeah, I guess just another comment. I'm definitely not against, I don't want this to come off that I'm against development in any way. I also definitely have sympathy, due to what has taken place with COVID. So I don't want this to reflect that way. Just to me, things just don't seem to align with this request. And I guess I'm just concerned for how this will continue to play out.
Councilman Leopard.
Thank you. I will approve this request, but I don't think I will approve another request without a visit from the developer.
Any other comments? Councilman Gillig.
Thank you, Mr. President. I suppose, 6 months is 6 months. I don't think it's going to hurt anyone in the city if we're able to grant this extension. As Councilman Leopard kind of alluded to, and the mayor kind of alluded to, at some point we need to start seeing some progress. But we are in a global pandemic right now, and I realize there's all sorts of thoughts about the development, so on and so forth. But I don't think a 6-month extension is out of the question.
Anyone else? Very well. We have a motion and a second to pass ordinance 20-58. The clerk will call the roll, please. On the passage.
Councilwoman Yanatuno,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Leopard,
Yes.
Perry,
Yes.
Shuff,
Yes.
Oil,
No.
Gillig.
Yes.
Ordinance 20-58 passes with a vote of 6-1.
Ordinance number 20-60, introduced by Steve Leopard. Ordinance accepting the petition for annexation of certain territory containing 1.019 acres, more or less, and being part of section 24 in Hopewell Township to the city of Tiffin and declaring an emergency.
This is the second reading of ordinance 20-60.
Ordinance number 20-61, introduced by Ben Gillig, an ordinance providing for the issuance and sale of not to exceed $3,405,000 of notes in anticipation of the issuance of bonds for the purpose of improving Progress Parkway and Fair Lane between certain termini and adjacent city property by grading, draining, curbing, paving, constructing sidewalks, curb ramps, sanitary sewers, water lines and storm sewers and stormwater detention basins, and installing and improving catch basins, fire hydrants, manholes, street lighting, and traffic signs, signals, and signalization where necessary, in each case together with the necessary appurtenances and work incidental thereto, including certain related and required improvements to U.S. Route 224, County Roads 1 and 54, and Township Road 18, and acquiring real estate and interest in real estate in connection therewith, and declaring an emergency.
This is the second reading of ordinance 20-61.
Ordinance number 20-62, introduced by Steve Leopard, ordinance authorizing the mayor to sign agreements with the Ohio Department of Transportation and the Ohio Development Services Agency /Jobs Ohio for grant funding for the Shawn Avenue Improvement Project and declaring an emergency.
This is the first reading of ordinance 20-62. Councilman Leopard.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would ask for the suspension of the 3-reading rule and passage of ordinance number 20-62.
We have a motion. Is there a second? Councilman Shuff.
I'd like to second, Mr. President.
Thank you. We have a motion to suspend and pass, to suspend the 3-reading rule and pass ordinance 20-62. Is there any discussion? Councilman Leopard.
Thank you, Mr. President. We have a short timeline on this ordinance request. The engineering department needs time to write and submit this grant.
Thank you. Councilman Jones, you had your hand up.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. This ordinance is new to me, Shawn Avenue improvements, first reading. If I understand this correctly, total cost is $262,000 and change. We got a grant for $193,000. Therefore, it sounds to me, if I'm reading this correctly, the city has to come up with $69,600 to move upon this ordinance. And if that's the case, clarify this for me, because I don't know where 69,600 is coming from.
Mayor?
Yes, so that currently is capital fund money. It does nothing for our general fund, which is the fund that we're struggling with right now. Capital, we can't move money from capital into general, but we can put money from general into capital. The problem is general is the fund that's struggling. Capital money, capital fund has the available money in it, and couldn't be used anyways to do any of these things like we've talked about, like save jobs, open the pool, etc. So that's where that's coming from. The reason for the expansion of this is because we have a business that would like to locate on that industrial space and create jobs. Also, it would be a manufacturing-based facility.
So we're going to get our money back.
Yeah.
Councilman Jones.
So with this time frame of June 30th, 2020, if we don't approve this, we're going to lose out on this grant of 193,000. Am I hearing that correctly?
Yeah, that would be correct. Yep. And then the project would be off because we do not have 270 or 280 to spend on the total project. So.
Councilman Leopard, do you have your hand up?
Yeah, just doing quick math off the top of my head, that's almost a 75% grant for that project.
Okay. Anyone else? All right, we have a motion and a second to suspend the three reading rule and pass ordinance 20-62. We'll vote on the suspension. Clerk will call the roll, please.
Councilwoman Yanatuno,
Yes.
Jones,
No.
Leopard,
Yes.
Perry,
Yes.
Schuff,
Yes.
Boyle,
Yes.
Gillig.
Yes.
The suspension passes with a vote of 6-1. We'll vote on the emergency.
Councilwoman Yanatuno,
Yes.
Jones,
No.
Leopard,
Yes.
Perry,
Yes.
Schuff,
Yes.
Boyle,
Yes.
Gillig.
Yes.
The emergency passes with a vote of 6-1. Now we'll vote on the passage of the ordinance.
Councilwoman Yanatuno,
Yes.
Jones,
No.
Leopard,
Yes.
Perry,
Yes.
Schuff,
Yes.
Boyle,
Yes.
Gillig.
Yes.
Ordinance 20-62 passes with a vote of 6-1.
Ordinance number 20-63, introduced by Ben Gillig, ordinance amending the 2020 budget ordinance 19-84 to appropriate $30,000 in the state highway improvement budget.
This is the first reading of ordinance 20-63. Councilman Gillig.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to ask for suspension of our three reading rule and immediate passage of ordinance 20-63.
We have a motion and a second. Councilman Schuff.
I'd like to second, Mr. President.
Thank you. Got ahead of myself. We have a motion and a second to suspend the three reading rule and pass ordinance 20-63. Is there any discussion? Councilman Gillig? You lit up. I didn't, okay. All right. Seeing no discussion, clerk will call the vote on the suspension, please.
Councilwoman Yanatuno,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Leopard,
Yes.
Perry,
Yes.
Schuff,
Yes.
Boyle,
Sorry.
it's okay, Gillig.
Yes.
The suspension passes with a vote of 7-0. We'll now vote on the passage.
Councilwoman Yanatuno,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Leopard,
Yes.
Perry,
Yes.
Schuff,
Yes.
Boyle,
Yes.
Gillig.
Yes.
Ordinance 20-63 passes with a vote of 7-0.
Ordinance number 20-64, introduced by Ben Gillig, ordinance amending the 2020 budget ordinance 19-84 to appropriate $25,000 in the fire escrow budget.
This is the first reading of ordinance 20-64. Councilman Gillig.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to ask for suspension of council's three reading rule and immediate passage of ordinance 20-64.
We have a motion to suspend the three reading rule and pass ordinance 20-64. Is there a second? Councilman Perry.
I'll second, Mr. President.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Councilman Gillig? Yeah, okay.
No, no.
You keep lighting up on me, so. All
Oh,
right.
what's happened there?
Okay. All right. Clerk will call the vote on the suspension, please.
Councilwoman Yanatuno,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Leopard,
Yes.
Perry,
Yes.
Schuff,
Yes.
Boyle,
Yes.
Gillig,
Yes.
The suspension passes with a vote of 20 to, with a vote of 7 to 0. We'll now vote on the passage.
Councilwoman Yanatuno,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Leopard,
Yes.
Perry,
Yes.
Duff,
Yes.
Hoyle,
Yes.
Gillig,
Yes.
Ordinance 20-64 passes with a vote of 7 to 0.
that concludes the ordinances, Mr. President.
Thank you. Do we have anything else for the good of the order? Law Director.
Just something for the record and for the minutes. This is regarding ordinance 20-61, which is the ordinance that provides for the issuance and sale of notes in anticipation of the issuance of bonds. The clerk reported at the last meeting that the fiscal officer's certificate for this matter was reviewed and signed by the finance director and was presented to council at last meeting. In addition, I want to make sure the record shows that a form of the note purchase agreement and a form of paying agent agreement pertaining to the Ohio Market Access Program, and then finally a form of a standby note purchase agreement pertaining to the Ohio Market Access Program have been placed on file with the clerk of council prior to your consideration of the note ordinance, which, as you know, will be at your next meeting, June 1st.
Okay.
Any questions?
I have a question for the city administrator. Did we get any numbers put together for the sewer?
We have put together a Excel spreadsheet that lists some of the revenues and expenses for the last 3 years. I've run those by Raftellus, and they recommended that by 1 June they could have at least a short form of a recommendation to us because of the picture presented by the Excel spreadsheet only tells part of the story. What they're concerned about is the amount of debt we will have over the next until 2040. We have about $82.4 million in 2015 dollars. They think that it's going to be well over $100 million in real dollars in present value, and that's going to impact our cash balances dramatically. So they'd like to run that for us so that you can see what the cash balance impact would be, so you can make a better decision.
Okay. So we're going to need some more information before we can move ahead with any more.
By June 1st, they hope to have a good set of data for you to look at that will help you make an informed choice.
Okay. So is everybody okay with bringing this up at the June 1st meeting? Okay, I see the heads nodding. Is there anything else? Councilman Schuff.
Yeah, I had a resident contact me about a week and a half ago, and they just had a suggestion. I thought maybe the Traffic Safety Committee could take a look at it. I know the intersection between Melmore Street and Circular Street can get pretty busy during school hours with Sentinel, Columbian, Calvert, and whatnot, but somebody had suggested or said that they would like to see that be a blinking light after 10 or 11 or after certain hours, whatever that committee seems fit. But they just said a lot of times they get stuck there on Circular Street sitting for quite a while the Melmore traffic goes through, but just a suggestion to throw out there.
Okay, can you pass that along to the city administrator? Okay.
Absolutely.
All right.
Thank you. We'll add it to the Traffic Safety Committee meeting the end of this month.
Thank you.
Anything else? Councilman Gillig.
Thank you, Mr. President. I had noticed Mr. Kirschner had his hand up to participate. I don't know if he's still there, but was he able to have his question addressed, or was there anything you wish to share before we adjourn?
I don't see him on there anymore.
Yeah, well, one of the things, we weren't we decided when we started doing these on the internet that we were not going to have oral communication. So
Written communication would be the better way to go. while we're still-
written communication is a better way to go. And I emailed a letter. Hopefully everybody got a copy of that from John, outlining his interest in the Riverfront project. Anything else, Councilman Jones?
What you emailed us about the Riverfront project? I'm drawing a blank
No,
here.
I sent you 2 emails this afternoon. I got them late today. You should have received 2 emails from me. You didn't?
I didn't check it till 5 o'clock. If it was after 5 o'clock, no, I did not.
Yeah, it was after 5.
Okay, then I didn't get it to answer your question. Well, I might have got it, but
I didn't get it either.
No?
I checked before we went online and I didn't have it.
Okay, I sent it to your city email. Okay, I'll go ahead, Councilman Gillig.
I have one, but not the other.
Okay,
Mr. Calnow.
okay. Did anybody get either one of the other than Ben? All right. Yeah, what I'll do, Ian, I'll send you those 2 letters and maybe you can send them
I'll
out.
put them out. Okay. Do that.
My computer skills aren't the.
At least get it to me, then I'll get it.
Does anyone else have anything they want to bring up or present? All right, it's been a long meeting. I appreciate everybody's patience and thanks for all your hard work and commitment to the city of Tiffin. Kathy, thank you as always for helping set this up. Thanks for getting me out of trouble. So if there's nothing else, I'm going to adjourn the meeting and God bless all of you. Good night.
Night.
Right.
You guys.